Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Improvement in Food Resources. In the earlier session, we were discussing about the crop improvement program. That means it is related to the improvement of crops, right? That is a crop production. So basically in this program, there are three different levels at which the improvement is possible. And of course, when these are followed, the crop production or the product yield from the crop plants are of course increased. So the very first level, it was related to improving the variety of the crops. Then we discussed about the production, that how the product yield can be improved. Now after following these two topics, the next part is the crop protection. See, even if we have increased the production by improving its quality, its quantity and all that, the next thing is if it is damaged, if it is destroyed by any of the means, then what is the use of such type of improvement? Right. So the next part we have to discuss is about the protection of the crops. So let us see that how this improvement in the management of crop protection could be done. See, when we discuss about this crop protection management, the very first thing is that we know that the crops can be destroyed, and this destruction is because of the pests which are attacking these particular plants in the fields, isn't it? And of course, if such attack of pest is there in the field, definitely the product yield is going to be decreased, because nobody is going to be interested in the diseased plant or in the destroyed plant, isn't it? So whatever is the thing, the very first part is the protection from these particular pests. So this is prior to harvesting. The next thing is, on field we have protected the crops a lot, right? Now after that there is a chance for the storage. So when these crops are stored, there is of course the possibility of its spoilage, and this spoilage, it can be again because of various reasons. So considering these points, now we can say that crop protection management is required in two different stages, right? And that is pre-harvesting and the post-harvesting. That means prior to the harvesting of the crops from the fields and after that while storage. So it's clear that if it is pre-harvesting, the protection is against the pest, right? And if it is post-harvesting, then definitely it is the protection from the spoilage. And this spoilage, it can be because of biotic factors or it can be because of abiotic factors. So you all know that biotic means the living organisms and abiotic means the these non-living factors like the various physical conditions. So now we have to consider these two parts, and let us discuss that how the protection is done or it can be managed prior to harvesting season or after that. So let us first discuss about the pre-harvest crop protection. These crops, as I said, that they are infested with a variety of pests, right? So the initial thing that you must know is that what is this pest, isn't it? So pests, they are defined as those particular living organisms that can directly or indirectly inhibit or reduce the growth of the crop plants. And definitely if the growth of the crop plants is reduced or they are attacked by these particular pests, definitely this will result in the economic loss to the farmers and of course to the country. And definitely when there is a low production of the crops, there is the reason to increase the prices also, isn't it? So ultimately everybody is going to be affected because of such type of attack. Besides this, the quality is also compromised, isn't it? So overall scene is that there is a need for the protection of these particular crops when they are growing in the fields. So now the thing is that which type of organisms are attacking the crops. So these pests, they can be of different types, like they can be weeds, insects, mites, nematodes, rodents, fungi, bacteria, virus, and so on. The list is of course endless. So as in this chart is shown here. So this it is showing the different types of pests here. The pest which is reducing the growth of the crop, the first category is the weeds. So these weeds, they are basically the unwanted plants which are growing on the cultivated land. So now these plants, you must be aware of these particular this part, isn't it? You must have studied in the earlier classes also. So these unwanted plants, they definitely compete for the different types of nutrients and other particular facilities provided to the crop plant, and definitely the crop plant, they are supposed to be then compromised. Or I can say that there will be the sharing of these particular facilities between the weeds as well as between the crops. So the weeds, they should not be allowed to grow on the cultivated land. The next is the animal group, right? And these animals, it will include the organisms like insects, rodents or nematodes and so on. So these are the multicellular organisms, right? And they are destroying the crops by attacking, by feeding on it or by boring inside it and in the different ways. Then is the microorganisms, which includes bacteria, virus, fungi and so on. So generally these particular microbes, they are actually the disease causing organisms. That means they are the pathogens. So multicellular organisms, basically they are destroying the crops by feeding on them or in different ways, or microbes, they are causing the diseases in the plants. So in any ways, all these particular pests are of course decreasing the production in the field or the product yield of the crops. So definitely they are of different types and they have different origin also. So their control and the mechanism of its attack all varies. So let us discuss in short about the each type. So weeds, as I already said, that they are defined as the unwanted plants which are growing on the cultivated field. Examples include like the xanthium, that is known as gokru, or parthenium, that is gajar ghas, and cyprinus rotundus, that is motha. And there are of course many different types of weeds, and basically all these weeds which are growing in the cultivated land, they are actually affecting the growth of the cultivated lands. You know how? It is by competition. Competition for what? By competing for the food, space and light. See, all these things, they are required for the development or the production of the crop plants, right? If the nutrition is not there, definitely the growth is not taking properly. It is not taking place properly, right? Then the land area, the space is limited. Over that, either the crop plant can be grown or these weeds can be grown. So, and similarly for the light also, this light that is provided of course by the sunlight. So all these things, they are shared between the crop plants as well as between the weeds. So ultimately what will happen? These available nutrients, they will be taken up by the weeds and they will support the growth over there, and the part which is shared by these weeds, definitely that is reduced from the growth of the crop also. So ultimately this type of hindrance is to be removed, and it is only possible initially by not allowing the weeds to grow in the land, and even if it is growing over there, then there should be a proper removal or the control of these weeds from the cultivated fields. And this should be, of course, it should be done in the earlier stage itself. That means when the crop is in the crop plants are in its early stages of their growth phase, at that time itself the weeds should be removed so that the growth of these crops are not affected. And definitely during the harvesting time also, the quality is going to be maintained. Now the point is that how this control is possible. So let me give you some of the methods by which the weed control is possible. So this weed control, it can be done in three different ways. That is mechanical, chemical and biological. So mechanical control. In this, basically the weeds which are growing in the cultivated land, they are removed by different mechanical means. Like by plowing or by hand hoeing. So in short, these plants, they have to be removed. Then is the chemical method. Chemical method, it includes the spraying of the weedicides in the cultivated lands. Weedicides, they are basically the chemical substances which controls or which inhibit the growth of the weeds. Right. So the examples of these weedicides are like DDT. You must have heard about it, right? Then there are like atrazine and so on. There are many different examples, and definitely these weedicides, they should be used in the controlled manner, as later on it can cause the soil pollution or different types of environmental pollution. Next is the biological control. Biological control is of course a very smart way of the weed control. In this, the insects are used. The specific insects are they are actually used in the fields, which are specifically killing the weeds. The specific insects, they feed on the specific types of weeds. So if the type of weed is growing in the particular fields, definitely these insects, they can be spread over there in the area, and they will feed over the weeds, and definitely they can control the growth, isn't it? So of course, if the weeds are controlled, alternatively the crop production is improved, right? The crop which is growing over there, it is protected against the weeds. Now the next type of pest which can destroy the crop are insects. So now let us see that what are these insects and how they can be controlled. So students, you must be knowing that these insects, they belong to which group? That is arthropoda. Yeah, you have studied about all these topics, isn't it? So these insects, they can attack the plants in different ways. And of course, depending upon this, that how they are attacking the plants, they are of different types. I'm discussing about the pest which is attacking the crop plants. Okay, so the very first type is the chewing insects. These chewing insects, basically what they do, they cut the particular part of the plants. It can be like roots or it can be stem or something, and they eat on it. That means they are feeding on the different parts of plants, and thus they are cutting them down. So of course, if the plants, they are cut, definitely the growth is hindered, and the quality of the product which is obtained, that is not going to be good enough. And it is even possible that prior to its complete development, these plants will get destroyed. The another type is the sucking insects. These sucking insects, they actually suck the cell sap, and thus they are destroying them. So cell sap is a material which is filled inside the cells of the plants, right? And of course, these type of insects, they just suck that particular material. And if the cell sap is sucked out, what will happen? The living matter is destroyed. And definitely, if the living matter is not there, the growth is not possible, isn't it? So this is how these insects can attack the plants. Then is the internal feeders. There are many different types of insects, which actually not only insects, the other type of multicellular organisms also, which actually bore into the stem, and then they destroy the stem or the different parts like vegetables or the fruits of the plants, and over there they feed on that and ultimately destroy them. So on one side, if we see, the insects, basically they are obtaining their own food. But ultimately, if we observe it from the another point of view, these insects are basically causing the damage to the fields. So now the thing is, of course, these insects or the pest, they have to be controlled. Their growth has to be controlled, isn't it? And how is it possible? Let me tell you. Well, before I tell you the control of these insects, let me explain the other types of pests also, and together we will understand the control. Well, another category of the pest is the pathogenic pest. These pathogenic pests, they are usually the unicellular or the microorganisms, and which includes the different types like bacteria, fungi, virus, and so on. Now, these particular organisms, they are not only feeding on the plants, but even they are causing the damage. They are causing the diseases in these particular plants. and definitely they are transmitted from one plant to the another also, or they are transmitted to the plants in different ways, and those ways could be like the soil, water, air, or through some insects and so on. I will show you some pictures so that it will be clear that what type of diseases are taking place in the plants due to such type of organisms. See, here are some pictures. You can see this a lemon or the citrus fruit is here, which is having these brown spots or blackish spots over it. Right. This disease is known as the citrus canker. Similarly, you can see this apple is here, which is having these black spots over this. This particular disease is known as the apple scab. Now, this citrus canker and apple scab, these are actually the bacterial diseases, and they spread through the air. Next is shown here, which is the disease which is found in the okra. That is a lady's finger, or bhindi, you can call it in Hindi, that is bhindi. So this disease is yellow vein mosaic, in which which is caused by the virus. Right. The another one is the rust, which is shown in the wheat plants, and this rust of wheat is caused by the fungus. So you can see that different types of pathogenic organisms, how they are attacking the plants. They are actually destroying the production as well as the quality of the these crops, isn't it? And this is the reason that why the control is essentially required, because when someone is going to purchase the food item, they're not going to compromise on the quality. And secondly, if the production is not in good enough, then definitely the price hike is going to be there. So ultimately everybody is at loss. So the way, let us see that how these diseases or the insects, attack of the insects, it can be controlled. Usually the pests, they are controlled by the chemicals. Uh, these chemicals which are used for such purpose, they basically inhibit the growth of the pest, or they kill them completely. So this is how the chemicals are actually attacking on the pest. Now such type of chemicals which are used to control the growth of the pest in the fields, they are known as the pesticides. And definitely they are of different types, and the application is also done in the different ways. That means the pest is controlled either by spraying the chemicals directly on the plants, or the another way is to treat the soil or the seeds with these particular pesticides prior to the sowing season. So in this way, definitely the growth of these pests is not possible in over the plants. So how they are acting, as I already said, they can either kill these pests, or they can inhibit the growth. Now, as I said, they are of different types. So what are they? It depends upon the type of pest which is controlled by these chemicals. So likewise, we can say that there are weedicides. The weedicides are those chemicals which are controlling the growth of the weeds. Then insecticides, as the name itself is suggesting, it is required or it is used for the insect control. Then comes the fungicides, which is required for the fungal control. Then the bactericides, which controls the growth of the bacteria. So this is how there are different categories of the pesticides, and the examples are of course given here along with this chart. Now important point is that when these type of pesticides are applied either on the soil or on the seeds or directly on the plants, they actually result in in some of the different types of problems. Like first is they can cause the environmental pollution, and second is it can be related to the biomagnification also. That means these particular pesticides, many of them are not digested, isn't it, by different types of animals or the organisms. So what will happen? They will accumulate inside, and they will have some poisoning type of effect in these organisms. So they can of course affect the growth over there if the particular type of organism is susceptible to such type of pesticides. So a great precaution should be taken while following this type of things. That is, while using the pesticides. This is how these crops are controlled, or the protection is provided to the crop fields prior to its harvesting. Right. Now the thing is, if the growth is good enough and production is of course good, the next point is when there is the storage time. Right. So during the storage time, further more precautions should be taken so as to control the growth of different types of organisms over there, or the protection from the different abiotic factors. So now let us understand that what type of crop protection management practices are followed so as to control the so as to protect the crop after the harvest, after its harvesting. So students, this post-harvest crop protection management, it has to be practiced in different ways at different levels. That means the level at which the crop product has been stored. See, once the crops are harvested, the products obtained, they are stored. Now they are stored at different levels, of course, like at the producer level itself. Right. Meanwhile, the product is protected, or it is stored by the producer itself. Then it is transferred to the trader, and then to the food corporation level. So depending on the level and the time for which the product has to be stored, the protection management is practiced in the different ways. And if this storage is not done properly, the food item may get spoiled. And the factors behind the spoilage is of course of different types, which can be abiotic or which can be biotic. The abiotic factors, like they are non-living, as the name itself is suggesting. A means absence and bios means life. So those parts which are not having the life, that means the non-living things in the short. So which are these non-living factors which can spoil the stored grains? They are like temperature and moisture. These are the two factors. Besides this, there are many more, but here we are just highlighting the 2 points. The temperature, it should be maintained well enough in the storehouses. Usually it is maintained below 30 degrees centigrade. In fact, 25 to 28 or 30 degree is a good range for the storage of the food grains. The reason behind this is that the organisms which can spoil the food grains or the stored grains, they actually grow at a temperature at the temperature range which is equivalent to 30 to 32 degree or up to 35 degree centigrades. So this is the favorable or the optimum temperature for the growth of the organisms. Right. Now, if this temperature is maintained below this range, definitely the organisms are not able to grow in the storehouses, and thus they are not able to attack or to spoil the food grains. So this is one fundamental fact for which the temperature has to be maintained. Besides that, the moisture is to be controlled. If the high moisture is there in the food grains, then definitely the organisms can grow in a better way, as they can grow in the moist conditions. Right. So in these food grains, the dry, I'm sorry, in the storehouses, proper dry conditions should be maintained. Right. Or I should say that food grains, they should have a particular level of moisture which is not supporting the growth of the growth. But definitely the moisture which is required for maintaining the quality of food grains, that is essentially required. So accordingly, the methods should be followed to maintain the level of moisture in the food grains. Then another factor which can cause the spoilage of stored grains is the biotic factor. That means the living organisms. So now, as we have studied earlier, like the different types of pests in the field, the different types of organisms can even grow in these food grains or the stored food items. And those include like insects, rodents, squirrels, rats, birds, mite, then bacteria, fungus, and so on. And all of these particular organisms, they can attack the food grains in the different ways and destroying them completely. Of course, the quality is also affected. isn't it? So overall situation is that certain preventive measures should be taken so as to avoid the growth of these particular organisms in the storehouses or the place wherever the food grain is stored at any level, whether it's a producer level, trader level, or the FCL, that is food corporation level. So let me explain that what are these basic preventive measures which can control the growth of these organisms, or how the crop can be protected from the spoilage. So the very first method is the drying. These food items, right? Especially I'm saying about the food grains. Basically, in these food grains, if the moisture content is more than 14%, then of course it can support the growth of the organisms. And if this has to be controlled, this 14% it should be reduced up to 10 to 12%. And this is possible, or it is done in different ways, like it is done by the sun drying methods, or the mechanical dryers are used. Like all this depends upon the level at which the drying is done, or at which the storage is being done, right? For example, like at home itself, like we generally store the food items for the entire year. I'm sorry, for the year. So in that case, what will happen? If the storage is not possible, if the moisture content is high, definitely the organisms can grow and destroy the food item. So prior to this, the food items are basically dried, isn't it? And especially before the rainy season. So the so that the moisture content could be controlled. Um, Besides this, even they are rubbed with the different types of oils at home, I'm saying, isn't it? So this oiling is basically preferable as it can control the growth of different types of bacteria, as well as it can control the moisture content also in the food grains. In these industries or at traders level, the mechanical dryers are used for this particular purpose. Then comes the cleaning. Food grains, they should be cleaned properly, and they should be packed in the storage bags so as to maintain the quality of the product. Not only these bags or these food grains should be cleaned properly, even the place where the food item is stored, even that should be kept very clean. Besides that, the proper light should be maintained, right, when the storage is done over there. So basically the storage conditions, like related to the temperature, humidity, aeration, attack of any organisms, all these things should be very well maintained in the storehouses. Besides these basic ways, the other way for this protection is the use of various types of chemicals. Let us see how it is done. Further, the chemical control, it includes the use of the pesticides like malathion or benzene hexachloride and so on. Now these particular pesticides, they are actually sprayed over the storage bags through the mechanical sprayers, or this can be done manually also so as to prevent the growth of the pest. Even in many different people or the farmers or the traders, they are actually mixing the pesticides with the grains also prior to sowing. But this type of methods, basically they can cause some of the disadvantages also. Disadvantages in terms of pollution, in terms of its intake in the body, and so on. So definitely on one side it is providing the protection from the pest, on the other hand it may be causing the damage to the environment or to the human health. So precautions should be taken in with respect to the time at which it is applied. Secondly, in terms of dose which is used. And also it is suggested that whatever food grains we are using at home, they should be washed properly in the running water, or I can say in the proper filters, or properly they should be washed by any means, because definitely the pesticides, they do have the side effects also, right? The another method for control, or the for this control of spoilage, is the fumigation. In this case, the special pesticides are used which are resulting in the fumes. and such type of fume producing pesticides are known as the fumigants, and their use is known as the fumigation, or the process of using this or spraying these fumigants is known as the fumigation. Now, they are generally used in the big storehouses, and of course, it inhibits the growth of the insects and even it can kill them. Common examples are like aluminum phosphate, ethylene chloride, methyl bromide, and so on. These fumigants, they have a special power to evaporate also, isn't it? So, of course, on the other hand, it may provide some advantage also. But the overall thing is that the precautions should be taken while using these chemicals, and secondly, the precautions should be taken while storing the food items. So this is how the crop production can be improved by following the different methods at different levels, like by improving the variety, by improving the production, and by improving the protection. So this is how the things are followed in the fields. So this is all about the crop production improvement, and next we will start with the animal production. So that will continue in the next session. So till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.